Hello, everybody, and happy April and happy good weather or whatever. I mean, can you believe we've got through 3 months? Maybe one of these days I'll start off these without saying anything about time. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I was looking for a quote today and I found one, and I'm not sure where I got it. I did a little research and it came from a Casey Neistat. Don't know how to pronounce his name because everybody said he's a YouTuber and he's apparently terribly famous, except I never heard of him before. So I don't know anything about the name. But it goes along, well, I wrote it from wherever I originally got it as life shrinks and expands in direct proportion to your ability to tolerate risk. When I was doing a little research to see if I could figure out who said this or find out more about it, the quote ended up being closer to, as a guiding principle, life shrinks and expands in direct proportion to your ability to assume risk. And then again, like Casey Neistat, Neistat. If you know how to pronounce it, let me know because I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. But anyway, and if you know something about who he is other than he's on YouTube, I never heard of him before. But from the standpoint of thinking about risk, because I think most of us tend to like to be safe. And I think that makes sense because we don't want to get into more trouble or have anything happen more than what we've already got, because we've already got so much going on. It's kind of like, why should I take more risk and have more problems come? But that tends to, at least from the experience I've had over the course of my life, and I'm probably a bit older than most of you, that the less risk we take and the more stable we are, the more the same we stay. In other words, if you stay pretty much stable and don't take much risk, you're probably going to be doing the same thing at 40 that you did at 20. Or probably not at 15, because most of us take a lot more risk at the age of 15 than we do when we get to be like 30 and older. But the idea still is that if you want to grow and if you want to change and if you want to accomplish something, you're probably going to have to take some element of risk to be able to get to that point. And if you decide that you'd rather not take the risk, then you're going to be more or less on the same treadmill or a walker, or one of those things that you keep walking on, like in airports, and you just never go anywhere. And if that's what you want, that would be fine. My guess is that that's probably not what you want. But the idea is that you maybe have to take risk, and it's like that might be a turnoff. So what I was thinking in terms of, can you take risk in small segments, small bits of risk, and build up to it? Say, it occurred to me a little while ago, it's like when you're thinking about taking a walk and walking the dog and it looks like rain, take a small risk and try it anyway, unless it really looks like rain. But if it's debatable, try it and see what happens. Try something new. Put in a little bit more seasoning or a little bit less or something like that. So try and take smaller risks and maybe take a small risk each day to get to the point that you think in terms of doing something different and something new and something unusual for you. And just, in a sense, increasing some of those things on a daily basis or weekly basis, depending on the risk that you're trying to take. Because the idea is that when you take a risk, you get to see what actually happens. And in many cases, you discover that things aren't as bad or maybe aren't as good, depending on how you want to look at it, as you thought they were. How many of you have ever thought something to the effect of, oh, this is going to take me forever, and it didn't? Or, this is a project that'll take me 15 or 20 minutes and I'll have it done in no time, and 3 hours later, you're still trying to figure out how to do it. We don't know what's going to happen when we try something relatively new. Sometimes even when we try something that we think we know, it turns out not to be going in the direction that we expected it to go. I was going to an appointment Thursday, at least I thought I was, until something happened. And I thought I was dragging something on the car, and I thought, well, gee, did a branch break or something? Found out I had a flat tire. Turns out that it was dry rot, and I had to go get new tires. That's, in a sense, a risk, because I'm thinking in terms of how I was going to do this, because I wasn't expecting to go buy 4 tires, I tell you folks. That was totally not on the plan for that day. But the other part to it is I was thinking in terms that, okay, I'm going to be taking a risk. And here's where you might want to think about risk. The risk I would be taking in that case is I could possibly get or try to get 1 tire, because there was no point in fixing it because it was pretty much in bad shape. Or I could get 2 tires maybe. And then the thing about it is then I would be sitting there more or less with the sword of Damocles over my head, wondering, okay, when's the tire going to go flat again? Because in this particular case, I was in my driveway. And I kept thinking in terms of what if I'd been on the highway? What if I'd been out someplace? Because I was going to go to an appointment and I was going to have to park in a garage. And I was talking to the AAA guy, and they said that they would have needed 2 vehicles, one to get me out of the garage, and then another vehicle to tow me to wherever we were going to tow me. And I'm thinking in terms of, geez, that would be a lot of trouble. So that if I was going to have a flat tire in the parking garage, out on the highway, someplace else late at night, that I would really want to do it. So then I was thinking in terms of risk from a standpoint of, do I want to go ahead and get the tires now, or, and alleviate that particular risk and then deal with the financial risk, because it was definitely not an expense I expected? Or did I want to, in a sense, go more with the expense, but have the expense of, the expense, yes, the expense of wondering what was going to happen with the tires? Because, one little detail, the tires are 11 years old, so I definitely got my money worth out of them. But it makes it even more questionable as to, how much longer were they going to last? Because in this particular case, it was, as far as they could tell, there might have been something in there, but they didn't really look terribly hard because they already knew there was no point in fixing the tire. It didn't look like I'd gotten a nail or anything. It just, I finally, dry rot, and it just collapsed, which told me that the rest of the tires were going to collapse sooner or later anyway, right? So this is, in a sense, what I'm talking about in the sense of risk, because we've got little risks that we have to take every day. We're not necessarily you're not necessarily being asked to quit your job and go off and do something like join a circus or something tomorrow. Give some thought to it and figure out what's going to be, in a sense, your options, and how much risk and how much you can mitigate and how much you're willing to tolerate to figure out where you want to go. If you decide you're not willing to take any risk at all, you're probably going to stay put. Then you have to decide, if that's what you want. If you've got a goal in life that you want to get to, you've got to figure out that you're probably going to have to take some degree of risk. But you have to figure out how you can work that out to accomplish the goal you want. And at some point, you're more likely going to have to take a sort of a leap of faith, but you're going to have to think about it. But the more you set yourself up that your leaps of faith, how do I say this, are smaller or narrower or not so high, so that if you set yourself up, so for example, as I said earlier, if you take a few risks a week or every day or something like that, so you get used to the idea of taking risk, you learn what kind of risk you can tolerate, then it's not quite the same as going from no risk to a big risk if you sort of work your way up to taking a bigger risk. Does that make sense? You're sort of, don't ask me where this is coming from, but it's kind of like getting a suntan. You don't go right out, when you're, been inside all winter and you're pretty much, for white people anyway, all white, and then you go out in the sun and then you get burned. That would probably be a bit of a risk. But for those of you of color, you go with the concept. I'm not trying to say anything about that. It's just the idea of going from 0 to 100 and thinking in terms of it's better off to go from a little bit over the course of time, and it's safer than going out and getting sunburned, right? I mean, that's basically what I'm after, or what I'm talking about. So again, think in terms of how much risk do you want to take? Is your goal worth taking the risk? And is there a way that you can set some things up so you can get more comfortable taking risks, so it doesn't seem quite so scary if you do have to take a big risk? Because sometimes you're going to have to take a risk and you're not going to, like with my tires. Yes, I had a choice, but I didn't necessarily like the options of the choice. And so it's sort of like it made it a bigger risk. The easier you have, the easier the risk is going to be is if you set yourself up to get closer to that, so it doesn't have to be such a big leap. Okay? If I had, say, like gotten 2 tires last year, that would have been easier, that kind of thing. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope it does. If anybody has any comments or questions or thoughts about this, please say something and let me know. Oh, I had this idea last night. It just sort of came to me about creating a little worksheet kind of thing to help people, in a sense, figure out what they want to do when they grow up, because there's sometimes I'm not even sure. And if anybody's interested in that, please let me know. I'm curious about whether or not I should go ahead with doing this or not. And I'd let you know about it when I did it, but just let me know if you think that would be helpful to some of you. It wouldn't be, I was going to say it wouldn't be difficult. A lot depends on what you mean by difficult, but it would be more time consuming in the sense that you'd have to do some writing, some things, but it's not in the sense difficult like I'm asking you for astrophysics or, to take a bunch of tests or anything else like that. But just let me know what you think about it, okay? So we will see you next week, and have a good week. Bye.